Hilchos Me'ila Perek Chamishi, the laws of sacrilege, misappropriating consecrated items, chapter 5. Today I would say is the meat and potatoes of the laws of Me'ila. We're really getting down to the defining factors. What are the parameters for this prohibition? Which type of object does it apply to? And what's the worth at which point you're considered to have committed the crime of misappropriating the property of the temple treasury or of Hashem? The Rambam begins by saying, Echad hamakdish lebedek habayis, davar haroi lechazek habedek. Whether one consecrates to the temple upkeep maintenance fund something which could be used to actually maintain the upkeeping of the temple, for example, he might donate a stone or a beam of wood. Or you consecrate to the temple treasury upkeep maintenance fund something which actually won't be used directly for upkeep, something which will be used for actual sacrifice on the altar, like sheep or birds. Or you consecrate towards the altar something which really cannot be offered on the altar, but will only be used for temple upkeep. Like a stone or a beam of wood. Or you consecrate towards either one something which cannot be used for either one. Like somebody were to consecrate roosters. Roosters cannot be brought as a sacrifice. They're also not used in upkeep. The chemetz or vinegar, vitzir, brine, a karka, real estate. Even if you sanctified a dung heap, a heap of manure, a heap of dirt, a heap of ash, they become holy. It doesn't need to be something which could directly be used in the temple. You want to hand over something, some kind of property or ownership to the temple treasury, it becomes holy. Mayalin bekulan, Me'ila applies to all of them, Misha shehukdeshu, from the moment they become consecrated, ad sheyipadu dvarim haro'iyim liyipadus, until those things which could be redeemed are redeemed. Halacha beis kol kadshe bedek habayis. Im dvarim shemayalin bahen nikadshe mizbeach. If you have things that were consecrated to the temple treasury, and you have other things that are meant to go to the altar, and they're at a stage where Me'ila is applicable, mitzdarfin zeim zeli Me'ila, they will combine with each other to have you commit the crime of Me'ila. If in combined fashion, a person derives a combined amount of a pruta, about 5 cents worth of benefit, ma'al, he has committed Me'ila. If a person ate and also shared some food, hektish food with his friend, or he derived benefit and shared the benefit with a friend, or he ate and his friend benefited, his friend ate and he benefited in a different way, all these benefits combine to create one large Me'ila. If in total a pruta amount of hektish funds was misappropriated and used for personal benefits, Me'ila has been committed. Halacha dalet. Me'ila doesn't only cross across people, it crosses also the boundaries of time. Ha-Me'ila mitztarefes lizman meruba. Me'ila can combine over a large period of time. What does that mean? What's an example of that? If a person derives benefit today from temple treasury stuff, and after a couple of years, still under the same inadvertent impression, has more benefit from hektish, they can combine to creating the combined worth of a pruta and cause a commission of the crime of Me'ila. Halacha hey, in Me'ila lebetalosh min hakarka. Me'ila only applies to that which is picked from the ground, detached from the ground. But if somebody were to have benefit from the land directly, or something attached to real estate, he doesn't commit Me'ila, even if he actually blemishes the quality of the thing, the real estate which belongs to hektish. What's an example of that? If somebody were to plow a hektish field, or he plants a hektish field, potter, he's exempt, he's dealing with land. If he took some of the soil, had benefit from it, and ruined it, then he does commit Me'ila. Why? He's detached it from the ground. Hadash bisdei hektish, if somebody threshes in a field of hektish, he has committed Me'ila, because the dirt that kicks up during the threshing will help the field. He's had benefit from the dirt used in the threshing process that's detached from the ground, and he's ruined the field. Same thing if he's plowing the field, not for the plowing itself, but to kick up dust in the field, to help the grass that's growing in it, v'natalo esav, and then he picks out the grass. After that is achieved, ma'al, he has committed me'ilah because he's used something detached from the ground. Hadar b'ma'aras hekdesh oibetzel ilan. If a person lives in a cave belonging to hekdesh, or sits under the shade of a tree belonging to hekdesh, or shayvach shel hekdesh, or he sits in a birdhouse, here's my man, in a birdhouse of hekdesh, afal pishanene loy mo'al, even if he has benefit from it, there's no me'ilah, it's all attached to the ground. If somebody consecrates a full built house, hadarba, if somebody lives in that house belonging to hekdesh, loy mo'al, has not committed me'ilah, attached to the ground. Aval hamakdish eitzim va'avonim. But if a person consecrates the raw materials, the wood, the stones, ubana and bias, that he builds a house from those consecrated materials, hadar shamal kameshi yizbar, as will be explained in tomorrow's chapter, in chapter 6, if a person lives in such a structure, there is me'ilah. Halacha vav gidulei hekdesh mayalin bahen. Growths, after growths of hekdesh, me'ilah can be committed and applies to them. Ketal, what does that mean? Hikdish sadeh v'hoitzia asavim. A person consecrates a field and the field gives forth grass. Ilan v'asa peres. A person consecrates a tree, the tree gives forth fruit. Mayalin bahen. These gidulin, these growths, are considered fully holy, and if you misappropriate them, you have committed me'ilah. Aval hamakdishas habayrekan v'achar kach nismale mayim. But if a person consecrates an empty pit, and then the pit, due to rain, is filled with water. Hikdish ashba v'achar kach nismale zevel. If a person consecrated a dung heap, or the area of a dung heap, and then it was filled with manure, shayvach v'nismale yainim, or he consecrates a birdhouse, and the birdhouse is then filled with doves. Hayil ve'enon gidulei hekdesh, since they aren't growths. Water doesn't grow from the pit. Manure doesn't grow from the dung heap. Birds don't grow from the birdhouse. They've simply gathered there. Ein mayalin bahen, me'ilah doesn't apply to them. Same thing with manure or dung, other types of things that stink, that are accumulating in a courtyard belonging to hekdesh. You shouldn't have benefit from them, but you don't commit me'ilah. What do you do with them? You sell them, and the proceeds go to the chamber of the temple treasury. Says the Rambam, you have a channel of water, a stream, coming out from inside a hekdesh field. Any of the water which crosses in the field, you cannot have benefit from it. But if you do, you don't commit me'ilah. Once the water exits the field, you could derive benefit from them, then they're no longer in the field of hekdesh. If you have a willow tree growing in a hekdesh field, you shouldn't use it, but if you do, you don't commit me'ilah. Ilan shal hedyot hasamuch lisdei hekdesh. You have a regular person's field, hedyot, next to a hekdesh holy field. And then you have v'sharashav yotzim b'soich hasadeh. There's a tree growing in that field, and the roots are extending into the field of hekdesh. Im benei levein hasadeh shel hekdesh ad sheish esrei amma. If between the regular field and the hekdesh field there's any distance up to 16 ammas, so then, like in this picture, they're very close together. So then the roots that are going into the next field are forbidden. Ideally, you shouldn't have benefit from them. But if you do, you don't commit me'ilah. Yes, but if the tree is more than 16 ammas away from the hekdesh field, and the roots go all the way into the hekdesh field, they're actually benefiting from the soil of hekdesh. They're literally converted into hekdesh. If you have pleasure from them, you have committed me'ilah. Ilan shal hekdesh hasamuch lisdei hedyot. If it's the opposite scenario, it's the tree is in the hekdesh field, next to a regular field, and the roots are going out to the regular field. If they're within the 16 amma distance, there is me'ilah. They're still considered to be growing from the hekdesh field. They're not fully unholy. If they're more than 16 amma distance, since they need the hedyot field to grow, it goes down a level. The roots in the hedyot field, you shouldn't have pleasure from them, but if you do, you haven't committed me'ilah. Halacha zayin ken shebereisha ilan shel hekdesh. You have a nest at the top of a hekdesh tree, which the bird built from wood and grass and the like. Kol hakan ima beitzim shabai ima efreichim atzrichim leiman. The entire nest and the eggs and also the young chicks that still need their mom. Einan bahen v'hanan leimal. On the one hand, you shouldn't derive benefit from them, but if you did, there's no me'ilah. Why? Because they aren't part and parcel of the tree. Halacha ches hamakdish es hayar. If a person consecrates a forest, a full forest of trees, mayalin bekulai, the entirety of it is subject to me'ilah. Bein ba'ilan, bein bechal ken shebereisha ilan neis eisha beinean. The trees, a nest on top of the trees, or in between them, because you've consecrated the entire forest. Halacha tes, Gizbarim sheshipu atzei hekdesh v'kitzitzu eisan. If temple treasurers, shipu means to smooth down, they plane trees that belong to hekdesh, and they cut them down. Mayalin ba'oisan ha'etzim haktanim shechaschu me'eis shekatzitzu. The small pieces of wood, the slivers which they shave off, there's me'ilah on them from the moment that they're cut. Aval ein mayalin loy bashipui, but the slivers, the small wood chips, there's no me'ilah there. V'loy ba'neseridas, or the sawdust. V'loy ba'neviyah shel eitzim, nor the neviyah of wood. What's neviyah? V'u aguf hakashe ha'agul shebaseicha eitz hadoima liyabeles. It's a rough patch, round, we call today knots, inside a piece of wood. Looks like a wart. Shelo yitzlach limlacha, because it will not be useful for work. So there's no me'ilah on that. Halacha yod hamakdish avda, if somebody consecrates his servant, ein mayalin ba'i v'lei bisarei, there's no me'ilah when it comes to either him or his hair. Why? In Torah, the legal status of slaves is like real estate. Same way real estate is no me'ilah, servants is no me'ilah. The novelty is, though, in his hair. Afal pishu emilihi gazes, even though it's going to be cut. And so it should be considered like detached from the ground or detached from the slave. Says that Rambam, the reason is because the hair is right now attached to him. The more it's attached, the more he improves. So it's improving the real estate, it's improving the ground, so to speak. And so it's still considered to be part of the ground, part of the servant in this case, and there's no me'ilah. Halacha Yud Aleph Hazareya Peides Hekdesh. If somebody replants Hekdesh fruit, you can redeem them when you plant them. Even if you didn't redeem them, what grows from that is mundane. There's no me'ilah. If you inadvertently use it, you don't pay back the principal or the fifth. And if it grows, it's like regular grain. You must take challah if you make dough from this grain. Point being, when you have a land that's hekdesh and it grows stuff, the growth is hekdesh. But if you only began with a hekdesh fruit and you put it into regular land, what grows is regular. Halacha Yud Beis Shmarim Shal Hekdesh Anasan Aleim Mayim. You have dregs, wine dregs of hekdesh, and you're pouring water on them, as they used to do, to get a kind of a winey texture. Rishon B'Sheni Ushlishi, the first round, the second round, the third round of this pouring, Asr Lehanis B'Ivanen Alei Mal. It's forbidden to have benefit from it, but if you did, you didn't commit me'ilah. Revi Mutter. Once it's 4 times, it's totally not wine anymore, so to speak. Totally permitted. That's only though true of things that were consecrated to be used as temple upkeep. But if the wine was dedicated to be used on the altar, we're more strict, it's always forbidden. No matter how many times you pour the water, it's considered to be me'ilah if you would misappropriate that wine. A person sanctifies, consecrates a hen to the mizbeach. It and its eggs are subject to me'ilah. Hikdish chamer lamizbeach. If you consecrate a donkey to the mizbeach, obviously it cannot be offered. Mayalin ba'u v'chalava, me'ilah applies to it and its milk. Hikdish tayrim lebeda kabayis. If you consecrate birds, pigeons to the temple upkeep fund. Mayalin bahen uveveitzasan kamesha bi'arnu. It and its eggs are subject to me'ilah, as we explained the other day. Halacha gedalid kosnes kuhuna shebalu. Old tunics of the Kohanic garments, they wore out. Mayalin bahen kishar kadshin. Me'ilah applies to them like any other sacrificial or sanctified thing. The hachadashim, new ones, since they can be used for benefit, the Kohen can make use of benefit of his clothes. Ein mayalin bahen, there's no me'ilah. Only once they go out of use, then they're considered to be holy, and there is me'ilah. Tesvav kache oivnei kechavim, things consecrated by non-Jews, idol-worshipping Gentiles. Im lebed kabayis higdishu, if they consecrated to the temple upkeep fund, it's really holy. Mayalin bahen, me'ilah applies to them. V'im kache mizbeachin, if they're dedicated to the altar, ein bahen me'ilah min ha-Torah. Biblically, there's no me'ilah. Shenemar b'karbanis, because by sacrifices it says daber el b'nei Yisrael, that the laws of sacrifices only apply to the Jewish people. And therefore, when a guy brings a sacrifice, it isn't becoming holy in the same way. Nevertheless, the rabbi said, don't have any benefit from it. Halacha Tazayin, the Rambam concludes with a very fundamental law. Koil, umare, sight and sound, v'reach shel hekdesh, and smell that belongs to hekdesh, lo'inanin v'lo'mayalin. You shouldn't have pleasure from them, but you don't do me'ilah if you did so. In other words, here's the sound. Leviim are playing instruments. You're listening to it for your own personal benefit. You're admiring the beauty of the temple, just for your own benefit. You're smelling the incense, beautiful incense, and it's hekdesh stuff. You shouldn't do it, but if you did, there's no me'ilah. When do we say that? If you smell the k'teiros for your personal benefit, after the smoke rises. If you smell the k'teiros as the incense is rising, that's literally me'ilah. That's like considered substance of hekdesh, not just a smell of hekdesh. And therefore, if you misappropriate it, you're actually misappropriating it, and you've committed me'ilah.